Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another live stream of Hearthstone. Today is Monday, December 17th. Tragic Master is already on the chat saying let's get the party started. Hello Rydo, I hope the RNG is with you today. Hopefully, but real life RNG not so great. So I basically took the weekend off, not intending to, because I did something on Friday that involved being outside and around other people, and inherently in this season that means you're probably going to pick something up and get sick. So now I have this kind of pressure behind my forehead that feels like a migraine, but I wouldn't really know because I've never had migraines before, so I'm in not a great point. Also, because we're so close to the end of the year, there's not really any news out either. I'm starting a little early because of that. I think what we'll probably do is we'll just try to burn through 2 daily quests. Although if I just play Paladin here and win 3 times, I'll get all of these daily quests done. Clearly I didn't reroll daily quests enough because after Saturday I Saturday I woke up early, so now I'm back to waking up at the wrong time and insomnia being a problem. But like Sunday, after that, feeling that sickness and that fever is what I think I have, and that pressure behind my forehead, I slept the entire day. So yeah, physically I'm not doing too well. I guess there's not anything else that we really need to deal with. We just need to come in here and play Paladin. Murloc Paladin, rank 18. Now this is labeled Murloc Paladin, but that is actually a misnomer. This is somebody named their deck Murloc Paladin at some point, but they've made significant changes from it. So that's what I was trying to think about, is when there's days when you just don't feel good and I need to stream, is there something else I could do? Now I'm thinking like a question and answer type video, but that would only make sense if that was less work, and honestly it's the same amount or more work to do a question and answer video. I could argue doing something like that should be something I should do right now because there's no news. But generally speaking, I think it would be smarter to have a simpler action versus what we're doing. And really the only thing I can think of is just kind of cutting the stream short. Yeah. Also, I have no idea how I would fix the YouTube chat warning that pops up. I guess it's fine. If I ever become hugely popular on YouTube, there would be enough chat messages eventually to knock it off the box here. But there seems to be no way to close that warning at all, and I assume the warning shows up for everybody in their own personalized chat box whenever they log in. So 4 hours into a stream, if somebody starts watching, they will still see that warning message. Speaking of YouTube, I don't know if I have a real article about it, but YouTube allegedly removed like 50 million videos that were full of hate and harmful content or whatever is what they said. The thing about being a content creator and hearing that there's been a past here is you're filled with well, I'm personally filled, I won't talk about other people's opinion on it, but I'm filled with slight amounts of hope, surrounded by a very hardened, candied shell of trepidation and fear, because what if some of those videos were my videos? I have 6,000 videos. I wouldn't really be able to know if something got taken off unless YouTube bothered to tell me, which almost certainly YouTube wouldn't bother to tell me. So, that being said, if they truly are just like hate-filled videos, maybe they should be taken off, but inherently I always have to just fall back to my free speech stance, and if you're going to support free speech, you have to support disgusting speech. That's all it boils down to. And if you're not willing to let hateful thoughts be out there, so that people can see that these people exist, that that some people do think this way, and we should reach out to these people and try to show them a better way. See, a lot of these censorship things, well, almost all the censorship things on the internet, have zero plan or zero thought of how this actually improves the society, as in the individuals who have these ways of thinking. You censor somebody who believes in conspiracies, and you've literally proven them right because you've actively and actually conspired to silence them. Does that help that person in any way? Does that help change their opinion? Does that do anything but other than solidify them into their opinion? Like, it really just solidifies them, and it's not helpful in the long run. It just isn't. Particularly also, I have an argument and complaint about corporations being given sovereignty, like to enact their own rules and laws, while also growing in major control of what a person's average life is. I was watching Netflix has this new show called The Fix, and I watched the first episode, and they talked about how on average people are spending 130 minutes a day on social media, where they're only spending like 39 minutes a day talking to friends, family, and other people face to face, which that's potentially wrong. Maybe it's fine, but it does show as a metric, from the metric that they gave, if that's accurate and like a peer-reviewed study, it does go to show that more and more people's lives are being lived through the online world more than the real, the offline world. Yeah, inherently, YouTube pulling 50 million messages that they labeled as hate-filled or bad in some way did not improve the world one bit. Like, the world is exactly the same as it was yesterday as it was today. So I don't see why you should do that things. Now, I know Google's CEO, which was in front of the US Congress getting grilled for a whole range of things, and that was one of them. But I think particularly on this topic, Google CEO could have made a very good response to the senators going, the videos of conspiracy videos and hate are a public mental health issue, and if Congress wants to improve the situation, they should, for the first time in pretty much the establishment of the United States, they should take public mental health a lot more seriously and enact laws that improve that one bit. And a lot of it also is just a public education issue too. So if the United States funded public education, it would solve a lot of this problem too. That's a long-term solution to a long-term problem, and people don't like that, but it's really the truth. Let's see. Tragic Master, Google CEO in court, same day Google's building in China burns, question mark. Just something odd is all. I hadn't heard anything about Google's building burning in China. And I don't think he was actually in court if we're talking about him in front of Congress. I mean, it's not quite a court. As far as Google's building burning in China, yeah, you could put a conspiracy thought on that, but you also would want to balance that with the known fact that construction in China is terrible, and things like following code or fire code or being careful at all is not done. So any building burning whatsoever, but I mean it could be political too. There's a lot of political things happening between the U.S. and China, and if somebody in China or China as a governmental entity was trying to get some kind of retribution by burning down Google's building because of like the Huawei employee getting arrested in Canada for the United States' warrant, that would be believable too. But the Huawei COO or whoever she was that got arrested was arrested, at least it's being said, because she did business with like Saudi Arabia against the UN's resolution and laws saying nobody can do business with that country. So while China may be upset about that, they would have been better off throwing her under the bus and saying, okay, whatever. Like, if somebody, there was definitely some talk about people being afraid to go to China and do business because they're afraid that, like, CEOs are afraid that they might get arrested on some trumped up charges. I guess no pun intended there. If they went to China. Honestly though, CEOs should have been afraid of that for a long time, because it's growingly obvious that happens quite a lot, that people in China get arrested on trumped up charges when you have the head of the UN's Interpol, International Police, arrested on corruption charges, which corruption inherently almost always means it's a fake trumped up charge in China. Then basically anybody could have that. Personally, at this point, I don't think I would fly anywhere, even even if it wasn't an international flight. I just think that there's too much danger everywhere for all of that. Even as a YouTuber, I may have said something to irritate one too many people. I adapt all these silver-hand recruits, I guess. I could give them all Wind Fury, or I could give them all 1+1. I think since they're 1+1s already, giving them 1+1 is the same as giving them Wind Fury plus extra health.
The battle! The battle! The battle! The battle! The battle!
There we go. But I was not kidding about there not being any real news, so unless something comes out pretty soon, unless something comes out while we're streaming on Twitter, I think I'm pretty much barely gonna have anything to talk about. We're gonna, I'm thinking we'll probably do like one longer 1 hour and 30-minute episode, and then that'll be it for today. While nobody's watching it, it seems, at least that's my perception, there's a decent amount of content, I feel like, on my coming out on my channel with the Steam wishlist cleanup videos, but that comes down to whether you want to watch me talk about a bunch of games on Steam. One thing that I feel like is cool about having done the Steam wishlist cleanup is the fact that
well played.
That it really revived my feeling about the games on Steam. Yes, there are really some good games still on Steam. There are a lot of games still to cover. Even if I'm feeling a little burned out and tired on playing like Borderlands 2, there's still a decent amount of stuff to do. Yeah. Let's see.
You win.
Lemon Lover comes on the chat and says, "Yo, tragic." And I'm gonna have to take a brief, like, just 3-minute break, and I'll be right back. So, apologies for that. Okay, sorry. Apologies for that. Let's hop back into the game. Just had to run to the bathroom real fast. I'm drinking a lot of fluids, trying to see if that would help expedite getting healthier. One thing I guess I could talk about, I don't know how to do that though.
I will fight with honor. I will command the
So
light.
I've started watching Sid Alpha more and more, and Sid Alpha's most recent story was that yet another one of these dirty devs, as he calls them, made like 43 copyright claims, not Content ID or YouTube copyright claims, but little DMCA claims against a YouTuber who caught their ire for seemingly not a real legitimate reason at all. And as far as, according to Sid Alpha, only one of the videos that they DMCA'd contained any content whatsoever that was owned by that company, and it was a 7-second clip, and that was it. And so they literally abused the DMCA. A single entity somehow abused the DMCA by just filing so many of these claims and getting a person's channel shut down, very possibly with it not coming back up at all, ever.
Speak your peace.
Because YouTube's certainly not helpful there. And inherently, this developer will probably not get in trouble for it. The way the law is written is so ridiculous and so easy to abuse that there's clearly two sets of justice systems. There's a rich person's, a corporation's justice system, in which they can get away with a lot and at worst be at risk of being fined. And then there's everyone else who can get no justice whatsoever because they can't afford the lawyers. Let's see.
Reporting for duty.
Yeah, I have like more incidental news than I have actual news I can even read off today.
No more take candles.
Let's do that.
Reporting for duty.
Let's see.
Reporting for duty.
GameIndustry.biz does have an article. I literally have about 10 tabs open right now, so yeah, this is not going to be a long one. In fact, I'm going to probably struggle to get victories more than I'm going to struggle to actually finish all the news. But anyways, Hajime Tabata, GameIndustry.biz has an article that says, Hajime Tabata, I quote, I want to change the way things are made. The Final Fantasy 15 developer intends to keep the new JP Games team small, streamline the development process. Now, the rumors I had heard, and I don't know if this is true or not, so take it just as rumor, is that Hajime Tabata was the reason why Final Fantasy 15 took so long for it to be developed. That being said, it's definitely believable that that might not actually be the case, because it wouldn't be the first time that a Square Enix game had interference from higher ups. But from what I've heard, like, he was flippant and wanted to change things and demanded changes quickly. Now, if you want to keep your team small, and that plays directly in line well with being flippant and wanting to change your mind and wanting to be able to pivot, as they call it, as quickly as possible. Like, if Hajime Tabata's perspective on things is Square Enix was too big, it had too many employees, and they were always fighting my flippant choices and changes that I was adding, then yes, a small team makes sense there. Inherently, I don't think that there's a significant amount of difference between a small team and a large team. It's not until you really get to a way too small team and a way too large team. If Final Fantasy 15 was being made by one person, that's way too small for the scale and scope of what they were trying to do in Final Fantasy 15, or what you would need to do to call a game Final Fantasy 15. If there were 10,000 people working on Final Fantasy 15, that's probably way too many. Although maybe you could, through hiring third parties to work on certain parts, still reach that height.
Move quickly.
I'm trying to think of what would have been too big of a game with too many people working on it. Duke Nukem Forever had way too many people working on it over a very long period of time, generally it being handed off to one person versus the other person versus the other. I'd say some of the Lego games have too many people on it because they have a secondary team that adds these racing levels in some of the early Lego games in particular that weren't that great.
Reporting for duty. Reporting for duty.
Hey, catch!
I think an argument could also be made that Borderlands 2 in particular had too many people working on it, in the sense that they had, like, I think it's 6 pieces of DLC that they had third-party companies make, and some of those bits of DLC were big enough to be their own side story things instead of DLC. Like, it's kind of ridiculous that if you wanted to play the pirate DLC in Borderlands 2, you kind of need to own the main game of Borderlands 2, which is not really connected, other than you have your save file character, which could just have been exported. Or if you just wanted to do the Hunter's Grotto thing, I feel like a lot of the DLC, particularly in Borderlands 2, could have been rolled out a year or two after Borderlands 2 came out, as this is a anthology of side stories, or this is just Borderlands 3. I think Half-Life 2 Episode 1 and Half-Life 2 Episode 2 also are kind of examples of, like, them stretching out the Half-Life series. Maybe, although I'm not sure that really falls into the category of too many people working on Half-Life. There's too many people working on some theoretical Half-Life 3, but all those people are fans at this point. None of them actually work for Valve. Let's see. I'm gonna scroll down this article. I could basically just read it all directly, but I don't think there's really a need. It says, for now, JP Games, Tabata's new company that he started, has not received any outside investment. He also indicated that whatever that he was making next would be on a large scale and would be akin to a AAA property. So him wanting a small team to make a AAA property is incongruous. It doesn't make sense at all. And that is where I figured this was going to boil down to, is that he's going to try to overwork his employees to death, as is tradition in Japanese employment. Something that they may have picked up from the United States, maybe not. He wants to make games for PCs, consoles, and smartphones. So he's like very, very ambitious, but honestly, I don't know how many people would want to go work for Tabata. Like there may be some Japanese out there that feel some great loyalty to him, and they would do that, but usually I think that would boil down to more loyalty to the company, so they probably would stick with Square Enix, which is their better bet, in my opinion.
For justice.
Job's done.
Here's a Gamma Sutra blog / articles talking about Project Hospital, or what is it, 2 Point Hospital, or whatever it's called. Still talking about that game that really nobody really seemed like they were interested in. We are just about 10 days, or I guess 9 days now, from Christmas. So I severely suspect everything is gonna just start wrapping down quite a bit. And we're not going to see a lot of things except for top 10 lists. And this is going to be kind of an interesting year for me, because this very possibly is going to be the last year that I listen to Giant Bomb's end of the year top 10 podcasts. It kind of just depends on whether I find anything better, or whether I always end up having a lot of free time at the end of the year, which I probably wouldn't. But a growing disillusionment and uninterest in mainstream video game coverage these days is making that very much the case. And Giant Bomb asks all of their friends in the video game industry and or other journalists to write their own top 10 lists that are sometimes in audio form and sometimes in written form. I've never ingested any of their written form content.
The light shall bring victory.
I will
And
fight with
Giant
honor.
Bomb does certainly feel like it is getting pushed or deciding to even spread out and stop being so much about video games. Now that they, like Dan being obsessed about wrestling and bringing that in, slowly but surely opened the door to other employees being obsessed and talking about other things. Austin Walker brought in board games when he was there. There's movies, things they're doing every now and then. It's just the focus of the website is now about the personalities of the people on the website, definitely. And honestly, I don't care enough, or really care for, a lot of the personalities of the people on that website, on Giant Bomb. And they're just all getting older and more out of touch. Or maybe I'm getting older and more out of touch. I don't know. But yeah, I honestly am probably gonna be set beside myself and not have much of extra stuff to do.
No more take
for the rest of the year. I'll probably just be a little bored. I did find at a point I stayed up one night and I watched all of the sci-fi series, FY series Happy, which is based off a comic book. I definitely remember when that was airing live on TV that it looked like something I wasn't interested in, and that it was trying too hard, and that it was going to be dumb. And honestly, if I had watched it week to week, I probably would still have had that feeling. But being able, now that it's on Netflix, to just rush through it all, it worked pretty well. I actually liked it quite a lot, which I'm a little surprised. I like raunchy comedy, and actually I thumbed up Happy on Netflix, and all of a sudden it showed me a category of raunchy content, and I'm like, why haven't you been showing this to me on since the beginning, YouTube? It's like you don't even know me. I guess I just, as far as Netflix is concerned, I guess I just don't thumbs up enough things. But yeah, there is definitely a case when you're doing raunchy content that if you're just trying too hard or just throwing in gratuitous content for gratuitous sake, it doesn't land well, it doesn't play well. I think a great example of that is I watched also on Netflix the Hellraiser Judgment, the most recent Hellraiser movie in the long-running series of bad Hellraiser movies, which was very, very gratuitous for no good reason and terribly written, just awful. It's worse than the one before it, and the one before it was pretty bad too. And the one before it was basically a movie written and filmed in like less than 2 weeks, I think. I'm picking a number at random basically, but it was a really, really short amount of time. It was filmed in one house, mostly in like 3 rooms of one house. It was all talk and very little show or very little action. And even though the Judgment had a lot more time and a lot more budget and all of that, it really wasn't. It was really way worse. One thing in particular you can look out for in any movie is if you have people talking in a car scene as they're driving, that's an indication that somebody is wasting the budget. Like, there's no reason to have conversations in cars on your way to a place. You can have the conversations at the place, or you can just not have the conversations at all. Transition scenes to exposit dialogue is ridiculous. A waste of budget. This in Judgment, it clearly does that. They have a conversation in the car that didn't really need to happen. Actually, before they have the scene where they talk in the car, they have a scene in the police detective's office. They leave the police detective office. One of the detectives gets in the car, then says, "Oh, I forgot something," and goes back to the office. So you see them in the car, then you go back to the office, then you go back to the car, then you have the conversation in the car, then you drive to the coroner's office just to have a bit of information said that could have easily been said in a brief phone call, or just having the coroner walk in the detective's office in the first place. Like, there's entire just wastes of budget that happened there. You had to make a car set, you had to make a coroner set, and there was no reason to need to do any of that.
Justice.
In Judgment, there's at least 7 women actors who are really only there to be topless, and that's it. Like, that's kind of the only reason that they're in the movie. They're not really given lines of dialogue. They're not really given characters to play. The male characters that are introduced are not particularly topless. Well, one of them is, but they're also given such little screen time that they don't have real characters either. So it's just like bad writing all over the place. It being a Hellraiser movie is only because they wanted to maintain the license to Hellraiser, basically out of spite at this point. Well, it's been out of spite for a long time, because Pinhead and the puzzle cube and the elements of it being a Hellraiser movie are just flippantly added, and none of it really needed to be there. On top of that, you have angels introduced for the first time in the series, which doesn't make sense. It's just way too late to introduce something like that. In fact, it's pretty ridiculous. And I know that the real main... I'm gonna switch over to casual and try and speed this through. The real main bad guy is also the person that wrote the movie, and is also the person that did makeup for this movie and the previous movie. And like, his makeup design is pretty good, but being a makeup artist does not make you a writer or a director. It's just really ridiculous. Of course, at this point, I'm just reviewing a movie and not talking about video games. There's so little news out. I don't think I would want to ever be a movie reviewer YouTuber, though. Like, my content, if I were to make a secondary channel and try to do that, my content would be pretty infrequent, and reviewing movies and is a content ID copyright nightmare, worse than even playing video games. So I do like to talk about them on occasion, but I don't want to make that a career path. Yeah. Although, frankly, if somebody was to pay me, I might make it a career path, as in if somebody were to hire me to review movies for a newspaper or a TV station. Somebody with a lot of funding behind them. But I don't think they even do that nowadays. I think they get freelance people to do it for free, or per word. Moving on, we have an article from TechRaptor. Let's talk about loot boxes and kids, my personal experience. Let's see. I'm gonna scan this article. It's a guy talking about his 12-year-old son doing chores and getting money, and then potentially, I assume this article is going to eventually turn into him using him and his friends using their chore money on digital items like Fortnite skins, Halo 5 rec packs, rare card packs, and Jurassic World on this topic. Pretty much any game that has a random element thrown on top of its microtransaction holds an irresistible lure for him. He'll go for months without playing Halo 5, load it up on a whim, and instantly drop $20 on rec packs as soon as he hears the game's music. Okay, well, there is a anecdotal story that I think many parents could repeat as far as kids being lured in with microtransactions and gambling elements. Let's see. Halo is rated T for teen.
I wonder.
Like, the argument is pretty stupid. The idea that even teen games should have microtransaction loot boxes and gamblings only stands if you actually believe that teenagers have impulse control, and that's not true. Anybody who's ever met or been a teenager knows teenagers have poor impulse control, and they're let's see. And that's what this article is going on about. Yeah. So I would be fine if microtransactions were not allowed in any game that wasn't mature or adults only. Let's see. So, the story goes on. His 12th birthday happened, and he was gifted money, and with some money with chores, he had $70, which is quite a lot of money for a 12-year-old. He's been begging for a few Nerf blasters for Christmas, and could easily afford the two that he wanted with the most with that $70. The first thing he did once all his friends left was hand me the money and say, "Here, Dad, I'm gonna spend this on rec packs." So, like, and it's just smarter, frankly, to spend your money on physical goods that have resale value, generally speaking. Since the beginning of past summer, he's dropped over $100 on in-game items. Let's see. Like, honestly, I think microtransactions should just not be allowed in games at all. I can't think of a single incident where it makes sense, or instance where it makes sense, and should be allowed, other for the fact that it makes the corporations a lot of money.
Give that minion a turn
Yeah, I'm really trying to think of any game, just any game out there that falls apart if it doesn't have microtransactions. And I can't think of any of them. Even the casino games, where you would think there'd be microtransactions in-game options to buy more credits and currency. I wouldn't touch any of those games with a 10-foot pole unless it's a casino game with fake money. Yep. We have Singpar on the chat saying, "Hey mate, hi." So yeah, there's definitely some worry for the next generation getting sold on buying microtransactions.
None can escape my fury.
It would be very helpful if they were banned on the Nintendo, the Google Play Store, and the Apple the Apple App Store. If those three services said nothing with microtransactions whatsoever, that is where the vast majority. I tried to mix two words together and almost said something dirty. There's a word we should probably make up. Majority. The vast majority of kids are either on cell phones on an Android or iPhone. So cleaning those two up of microtransactions would be very easy. And frankly, at this point, if that just means that kills cell phone video games, so be it. Like, there really aren't that many good cell phone video games out there. And it wouldn't kill them, certainly. There's too much of a sunk cost investment. It may require a lot of people to watch a lot of ads, but yeah, I guess that's the one microtransaction I might be willing to pay for, is no more ads in an app. But for the greater good, I'd take games that show a bunch of ads versus games that show a bunch of ads and have microtransactions in them, loot boxes in them. Sinpar says, haven't played or watched Hearthstone in a while. Well, for me, since I started using hsreplay.net's website, which is integrated to the Hearthstone deck tracker app that's over here somewhat, I've been able to build some better meta decks that win a lot more. So as long as I'm somewhat paying attention, which I often am not, I'm actually doing pretty good in the gameplay. I'm still not really getting up to rank 15 or anything like that because I just don't put enough time in it, and I split my time between playing the Americas account and the European account and the Asian account, so I'd have to play effectively 3 times as long to get as far as most people. The Boomsday Puzzle Lab solo expansion I think is worth doing. The new Rostacon's Rumble expansion came out just a few weeks ago, and so that gave us some new cards. If you fall out of Hearthstone, it's really hard to get back into it, and I feel like it's really hard to get into it if you're new at all, because there's just so many people who are playing in the beta, and because they were playing at that early point, they have almost all the cards. I personally have on my Americas account, which is my oldest account, nearly all of the classic cards, and so next expansion probably I will pour at least 75 packs worth of gold into the next expansion, so I'll have a decent amount of all expansions going forward, and then the older expansions are going to fall off to Wild, where I still would never really have a chance of competing. The bigger concern these days is just Activision Blizzard themselves. Like, people are leaving Activision and Blizzard, which is the same company, left and right. Ben Brode, who was the guy in charge of Hearthstone, left, and Activision is working on a bunch of cell phone games that nobody wants, at least as far as I can tell. And they've recently basically given up on Heroes of the Storm, so So that's another issue, and I wouldn't be surprised if Diablo 3 hasn't gotten any new real content in a long time. So it kind of leaves them with focusing on Overwatch and Destiny and whatever World of Warcraft and maybe a Warcraft 3.
Reporting for duty.
Alright, let's do this.
Reporting for duty.
Is there another way I can do this?
Done.
Let's see. Yeah. But on the other hand, if you're going to play a card game, which until I can find some other kind of card game that would allow me to talk about video game news when there is video game news, and would allow me to take these long pauses and breaks and not focus on it, which Hearthstone gives you a lot of that. Like, after you hit your end button, you really don't have to watch what your opponent does. It certainly would help if you did, but you don't really have to do it. And so you're given a good 20-30 seconds minimum each turn to just focus on something else.
Speak your peace.
Reporting for duty.
Job's done.
There you go. I've also done some updating. I like it. I don't know if other people like it. So now I have this web peek. So we're talking about this game, Contractors. I can come over here and bring up Contractors on Steam, and we can look at it and see if it's something I'd actually want to play. Team-based competitive multiplayer shooter in VR. Which, of course, all of this could be asset flips that are just slightly polished. Doesn't look terrible. Early access, but requires VR. It's $16.99 discounted right now. And so I've also made the choice to add things to a follow list instead of the wish list. So I've cleaned up my wish list. The process of cleaning up my wish list, as I come back from the web pink, was very extensive. So every day on my channel there's a episode called the Steam Wishlist Cleanup that is showing off just how much work was put into that to ensure that what is on my wishlist is games that at least reach a decent level of curation and quality, since I am asking people, if they don't want to support me on a monthly basis, to Patreon, which would be a lot more helpful. They can friend me on Steam and give me a game off my wishlist. So now games that are brand new and don't have that many reviews, I put on the follow list. I'm gonna have to do a follow list cleanup video, probably at the end of the year. So I've been doing a lot of things in the background with my channel, which has led to certainly a kind of a continuing effect of having less and less actual video game content on my channel. Right now it's the Boomsday Project puzzle solutions episodes are airing, and then there's the Borderlands 2 is airing on my channel, and then the Steam Wishlist Cleanup and sort of old versions of Hearthstone air on my channel every day. But man, I'm struggling to get a victory here, and I wanted to burn through all of this pretty quickly. Yeah, starting in January, I feel like I might very well make a lot less content. I think we're going back to the beginning. Like when I first started my channel, probably over 4 years ago at this point, I did it by just playing some very long runs of the Binding of Isaac. I think Binding of Isaac, not Binding of Isaac Rebirth. May have been Rebirth. And those were long, basically live stream videos.
I will fight with honor.
And then I got ambitious, and then I started doing 2 episodes a day, and then I got ambitious and I started doing 3 episodes a day. Then at some point I jumped into Hearthstone, and it got to 4. And at some short points it got up to 5 pretty consistently, and then at some points it was like 6 different shows airing on a Monday through Friday. But it never fixed itself as far as having footage backed up and having a backlog of things that should and could air. And so I kept working on other projects not related to the YouTube channel. I kept getting tired, I kept getting sick, I kept running into a whole list of excuses, basically, where content just was not getting made. At some point I went from like an hour long episodes, which is kind of where I'd like to be, to 45-minute episodes, to 30-minute episodes. And all the while, YouTube certainly cut a lot of the steam out from under all YouTubers, all small-time YouTubers, because they kicked us out of the partner program. So I was making like 7 cents a week from people just watching my videos back when I had like maybe 150, maybe 200 subscribers. Now I have like 307, but I still would need 1,000. So what is that, 15 years potentially? Meanwhile, it's become increasingly more difficult for anybody to get new subscribers on YouTube, and yet they have this ridiculous 1,000 subscriber limit for when they don't even care if you're subscribed or not. That's not what they're suggesting to people. The only way you see your subscriptions is to go to the subscriptions page, which is hidden. Basically, it's not your home page.
Reporting for duty.
Guess I'll do this. Probably too early, but whatever.
Repent.
And so yeah, once you go from making 7 cents a week to 0, that's 100% pay cut. That kills a lot of the steam as far as trying to run a channel. It's been a bad year for video game YouTubers and journalists, and if I can call myself a small-time journalist. But it really has been a bad year. A lot of hysteria and propaganda and yellow journalism just irritating me happened this year. Pushed me a lot further away from being a far left supporter than I would have called myself, into much more of a centrist position politically, as I saw just how extreme and crazy the extreme left mainstream video game journalists have gotten, with these constant attack stories that happen over and over again and really have no place in being talked about or published or created. They're just creating stories instead of reporting news. And as far as actual games that came out, I know if I've played a single new game this year. This is probably a quick recap of what... This is probably a quick peek at what the end of the year video is going to look like too. There we go. Well, that took longer than I would have liked, but that sets us good for Wednesday. Hopefully I feel a little bit better Wednesday. And there's a little bit more news. But yeah, I don't think I played a new game at all this year. A lot of that is just finances. But also, I don't think there's been a lot of great games that came out this year. There have been a few great games. But if I was to look at everything that has happened... Yeah, we've got to watch and learn. Let's see if we can watch this guy play and see if that counts. That'll be interesting. This guy's doing the Rastacon's Rumble. This solo adventure, I still haven't even on my main account won on it. And I really don't care enough, frankly, to win on it. Because you're just going to get a card back. So while this is going on, let's cover the last few bits of news we have. GameIndustry.biz has an article, Splash Damage CEO Paul Wedgwood, stepping down after 17 years, will be replaced by the fellow co-founder Richard Jolly. This is a UK developer, Splash Damage. I've heard of Splash Damage, I think, but I don't know what they've made. There's a quote, Paul and I have been close friends for 20 years, and he's been an inspirational leader who's left us with a lasting legacy to ensure we keep employee and player happiness at the heart of our company, said Jolly. We all sincerely wish him the very best of luck, no matter what his next endeavor takes him. Paul will always be a close friend and remain part of Splash Damage family. Although we're sad to see him leave, we're excited about the future of Splash Damage. In the coming year, we'll have developments to announce, and we can't wait to share what we've been up to. Splash Damage is perhaps best known for work on multiplayer development, most famously with Wolfenstein Enemy Territory. Yeah, that's one of the Wolfenstein games in between Wolfenstein 3D 2 and the reboot of Wolfenstein. And they're currently working with the Coalition on the Gears of War franchise. So, yeah. Interesting. But not really that interesting. Why am I clicking confirm here? I can't click confirm. Let's leave and come back here. Like, he's either sitting there doing nothing, which you can do if you're playing solo, or the game just totally glitched out there.
Ricard versus Voon. I'll be working my pits. Bring it. Bring it on.
The guy is just literally sitting there. He must have just taken a break. I can't really hold this against Deadshot Vet though, because if you try to leave, it's kind of hard to do on this solo expansion. Unfortunately, what he's going to find out, and I found this out too, is if he sits idle for too long, he'll get unloaded anyways, and he'll lose the game. So I guess I just need to then play some Shaman cards. Maybe he'll start moving in a few minutes. Play some token Shaman, see how that works. This was probably the most important news of the day. HQ Trivia and Vine co-founder was found dead. Colin Kroll believed to have died from a drug overdose on Sunday morning. So I don't think this is the guy who was the presenter on HQ, which I could see myself easily making that mistake. But yeah, it seems like he OD'd. His girlfriend, who apparently wasn't living with him or at the time, or was maybe just not there, called the police, fearful for him, for his safety, so she probably couldn't get in contact with him for a long time. It's almost a classic tragic story, you know. You get sudden success through something like Vine and HQ, and then potentially that leads you to the world of drugs and this potentially ODing would be my guess as far as how that story is going to get reported. We already kind of talked about this, but Komatsu has an article. Hajime Tabata discusses Square Enix departure and the JP Games establishment. Let's see if there's anything that's super interesting here, because this is probably going to be very soft responses. He's probably not going to come out and say Square Enix is a total nightmare and nobody should work for them. It says, I made the decision to leave Square Enix in our various discussions regarding duties and position, hands off the fate of Final Fantasy's 15 downloadable content was decided. Personally, ceasing the development of Final Fantasy's 15 downloadable content was a disappointment. I'm truly sorry to all the people who were looking forward to it. In a response to CyberConnect 2 President Hiroshi Matsuyama, who said, as a fan of Final Fantasy 15, I really wanted to buy it to see it through before leaving the company. I wasn't able to finish it, but I do feel like I did everything I could do, is his response. Let's see. We need to put this on elemental. I guess this is an elemental. And just play that. Do this. And this. This. And this. I am disappointed on not being able to release all Final Fantasy 15's downloaded content myself, and truly sorry, but there's no relation between that and my leaving the company. Odd that he would say that there's no relation there, because that, if translated right, means that Square Enix canceled the DLC, which would make sense. Like, Final Fantasy 15 is a mess. I could see them not wanting to put more money into it. So maybe Square Enix did cancel DLC and Tabata left in protest. I didn't get into a fight with Square Enix. I left on good terms, he says. Yeah, of course that's what he'd say. As for JP Games, he has... Actually, it didn't return some bunch of imps. I think there are several people working at the newly established JP Games. We're still looking for an office. We haven't received any outside investments. We're currently self-funded. At first I wondered if it would be possible to make a AAA game as an independent company. We're still adding team members, but I think we're going to settle with a small number of staff. I'm thinking about several games I want to make, but I can't say what they are right now. As for platforms, I want to do multi-platform development across consoles, PC, and smartphones. Let's pay attention here a little bit. Am I playing any cards that are Shaman cards, actually? I should just build a Shaman deck and be done with it. Like, if this doesn't play even 5 cards, I'm just gonna build a Shaman deck. It continues, during Final Fantasy 15, I really wanted to change the way we were developing. When it got busy, the workload exploded, so we never had enough staff. At times like this, we would get a bunch of people in studios in places like Vietnam or Malaysia to develop, but it was difficult to scale up in flexible ways. I had to prepare high-spec PCs, create all the security policies, etc. That was all a pain, so I'm changing the way we do things, like to be cloud-based, for example. Before we make games, I want to evolve the way we develop it. He's ambitious to both change the way video games are developed and launch a new company, and should have played that card, and make AAA games and have a small number of employees. This is a typical example of an overly ambitious video game developer, if I've ever heard of one. And then the final quote is, I want to be able to make large-scale games at some point, but I don't think we're going to hire a ton of developers in one place. It'll be basically be developed virtually. So, yeah. That's something that Microsoft should do, not JP Games. Like, if you told me Microsoft was going to change the way games were developed and have everything be developed virtually, I could believe that. But not a brand new company. Gamma Sutra has the same, basically the reprinting of the same Kotaku article about Riot Games suspending its COO, Scott Gelb. There's no reason to talk about it again. Thinking of things that there's no reason to talk about again. One allegedly internal employee at Valve has leaked out some information that they are making the claim that Valve, being a Washington state company, is following some kind of Washington state child exploitation law as an example to basically ban a significant amount of visual novels and anime games that have kids that are wearing high school uniforms or set in the high school environment, which is ridiculous. It seems like the way they are interpreting this law, which definitely seems like they're interpreting it wrongly, intentionally, seems to say that there needs to be no sexual innuendo, content, or reference or implication whatsoever. Just children being there is child exploitation. Particularly weird when you're talking about video games, until you're talking about cartoons, not real human children. So it's a whole lot of BS. This does not make any sense unless this was a new Washington state law that did not get reported by anybody. Like, because this really does just feel like a new interpretation of a law that already existed. And it really doesn't cover a lot of the scenarios where they're still, like, there's at least one game where Valve demanded a shorter, thus maybe younger looking character be censored out of the game that had no sexual content in it whatsoever anyways, and that younger character was in a fantasy land, so she wasn't in a school environment. or a school uniform. Like, this, it really just boils down to, is this a rogue employee, or is this the entire company has gone rogue and just lied about their intentions as far as not being tastemakers, not being policy makers, and letting anything that is straight up, anything and everything except for things that are straight up trolling or illegal. They've clearly, somebody has expanded what they meant by illegal to include a unrealistically broad definition. And unfortunately, as consumers, if you want to see Steam succeed in part, I think you have to be against the way they're acting right now with these visual novels, because visual novels helped make Steam successful and still help make Steam stay successful. So a blatant abandoning of them is not good for the world or for the video game industry in general. Even if you are never going to own or play any of them, it also just falls down to a free speech issue. Like, do you want people to have free speech on the largest PC video game publishing platform that exists? Or do you want the vast majority of all video games to have to be censored? Because they come for the anime girls today, they'll come for something else later. And yes, I lost that person, so I'm just gonna see if I can add this person as a friend and follow them. So I need to play Shaman cards, so it'll be a lot easier just to make a deck. I didn't make any wild decks or any special decks.
You can only use it in
Still plays that warning every freaking time. But Valve is still, even if you're all for all anime games with set in schools, even if they are just dating games or not even, I mean, that's also horror games too. Like, all Japanese horror games set in schools will be the next thing to go. Even if you're for all of them disappearing, like, it is literally the slippery slope argument. That is the argument to be made and to be believed, because Valve said they weren't going to do this, and the dishonesty only means more dishonesty is on the way to come. Moving on, Gamma Sutra has an article, report Pokemon Go creator Niantic close to 3.9 billion valuation. I think we already talked about this, but yeah, Pokemon Go creator Niantic is racking in the money.
Versus Jaina.
You asked for it.
For doom.
So I just made this quick Shaman deck. All I have to do is play as many cards as possible before I win or lose. As for other games coming out on Steam, we have Pixel Fishes, which looks like an MS Paint garbage game. So I've seen better fish simulators come out in the past 2 weeks alone. Although this looks like it might be a bit of a fishing game too. $2.99, not discounted at all. Right. Spell. This in the turn. Tigraptor has a review for the game Dusk. It's titled Dusk Review: The Dawn of an Old Era. Dusk, I believe, is like a designed to look like an old school Quake or Doom style first person shooter games. But I think it's a more modern game, so like the graphics look terrible. They look like something from the 80s. So I don't get the point or the desire to make your game look ugly in the modern day and age. You can take the general gameplay ideas, but you make something like Doom, the Doom reboot. You don't make something like Doom, the original Doom game. Let's see. We have Matthias Mezkia saying, hello, I'm from Poland. Hello. Let's see. Draw 2 cards, deal 2 damage to a minion, give a minion death, I always summon it. Just play all these cards as fast as possible. So TechRaptor gives Dusk an 8.0 great. It says Dusk is a thoroughly unapologetic retro-inspired shooter. It's got its flaws, but it's an excellent combat and emphasis on exploration. Should see a rocket jump to the top of every shooter fan's wish list. Pros are satisfying visceral combat, great level design, varied enemy types, and a cathartic, powerful weaponry. Cons are lack of innovation and some difficulty spikes. Personally, I don't think I could get over the visuals for Dusk. Like, I was not a huge fan at any point to of first-person shooters in the old days. So, yeah, I could see myself never really getting into anything that was that requires you to be nostalgia for like Doom or Wolfenstein. I like the reboots. I actually own the Doom reboot and haven't covered or played it yet, but I like the Wolfenstein reboot, and I think I will enjoy the Doom reboot pretty well. So I think that's where the majority of players these days are going to go, is that they're going to have modern sensibility and desire as far as the type of games that they want to play, and not play something that is old school and really difficult. Gamer Sutra has an article. Fortnite dev team removes the Infinity Blade for being, quote, overpowered. Infinity Blade was, of course, the iOS game series that they just removed, or they are removing from the Apple Store, which honestly, Infinity Blade is also kind of the only, one of the few good cell phone games to ever been made, and Epic Games, with all their Fortnite money, still doesn't have enough money to support it, they say. So, so the question might be, are they really removing it because it's overpowered? Probably. But it might also be that they're removing it because they don't want the name Infinity Blade to be remembered, as they're trying to shutter that series. One thing I could do that would be interesting is I can give the stealth minion taunt, and then I could potentially... No, actually, I don't think that works.
You can't target stealth minions.
Can't be targeted. Interesting. Didn't realize that was the case.
That's not a valid target.
And they can't target those guys either. GameIndustry.biz has one of these inside baseball articles. It's called Delta DNA in-game ads beginning to catch IAP as a viable revenue service. Study indicates that both casual and core mobile free-to-play games are making an increasing percentage of their revenue from ads. And so, yeah, this reads a lot like an ad for Delta DNA or an ad for in-game ads, more than an actual article. But whatever. Gamasutra has an article. Steam's quote top wishlist filters ranks recent wishlist numbers for unreleased games. A little known page on Steam ranks unreleased games according to the number of wishlists they've garnered so far, though the exact metrics being tracked is still somewhat unclear. The top wishlist page itself currently lists 196 unreleased games according to the amounts of wishlist attention they've received. There has been a push, certainly, from some developers to get people to wishlist their games even before it's out. Not like you get a reminder or anything when the game actually does come out as a consumer. Like, I don't wishlist games and then get emails from Valve saying, hey, that game you wishlisted is now available for purchase, which is a good thing, because if I did, I'd be getting emails 5 times a day at minimum. I don't think there's really much more to this article. It says many devs have both their own data and information from others to try and suss out the importance of wishlists to a game's post-release performance on Steam. Some, like Grey Alien Games, Jack Burkett, who spent the vast majority of this month complaining about Steam, just for reference, have previously used the data to work out roughly how often wishlists convert into actual sales in the relationship between a game's wishlist popularity and early sales numbers. Like, not much of an article there. Let's see. If I look at the top wishlist page, let's see. I need to play 3 more cards and see if anybody was watchable. Nope. See if we can get a new friend so we can watch them. Then let me see if I can make this page a little bit bigger. That seems more reasonable. Alright. So this is the top wishlist page on Steam. We have Secured Shadows Die Twice, Resident Evil 2, Metro Exodus, Devil May Cry, Biomutant, Atlas, I don't remember that, Tropico 6, I didn't know that was coming out, Mountain Blade, I don't think GTFO is much. Let's see. The thing here is most of these games, Eastward, haven't heard of that one. Most of these games are going to be AAA titles. I doubt that's a AAA title though. And they're going to have a big push to build up to their publishing date. They're not going to be these small indie games that just show up on Steam through Steam Direct. So like a lot of these games are months and months, if not years away. And this is not very indicative of what actually comes out on a daily basis. So yeah, it might be useful to look at all these games, but not really. Let's get rid of that one. Like I couldn't see how integrating the top wishlist games means anything at all, or means too much. freeze it, and then you know what I can do is I need to play 3 cards. So let's just do this. TechRaptor has an article. The game streaming platform Utomik, UTOMIK, never heard of it, adds achievements and an add to list feature. One thing I would like to see Valve improve on Steam is their list feature, because it actually doesn't work very well as far as I can't just create my own list, which is really ridiculous. I should be able to make a list of games that are adventure games. I should make a list of games that are point and click adventure games. I should make a list of fighting games and visual novels, and like I could sort those lists pretty well on my wish list and fall list if they just let me create my own list instead of just having one default wish list. That being said, Utomik is a streaming game platform that seems like it has a decent selection compared from what I'm seeing. A lot better selection than what like the Epic Game Store has right now, but it's really no competition to Steam. None of these stores really are. You're gonna have to have a lot of money and a lot of like just basic website development skill. Like, it took Amazon.com a long time to get where it was. You can't just do that overnight. Let's see. We have this game on Steam called Ballistic NG. It's a racing, fast-paced action game. I've seen a bunch of these. Has single player. This is still not zoomed in to the right size. Let's see. That's where I want it to be. So I guess I'll be generous and put this on the follow list, $7.99, and we'll see what the reviews say. This looks pretty good, but there are at least 3 or 4 between my follow and my wish list that potentially look a lot better than this game. Let's see, Death Rattle, resummon this man. I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this, I'm gonna do this.
Let me show you the other side.
I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna do this.
Good news, everyone. I perfected the plague.
And then end the turn. That's all I can do. Next we have a game on Steam called Underlight, which they're saying is a free-to-play, massively multiplayer RPG. You can see by these graphics it does not look good at all. This is what I will risk calling a cheap Chinese knockoff looking game, but it's English only, so I guess it's a cheap Western knockoff game. Yep, it looks like total garbage. I don't even have a bunch of bad games to talk about on Steam though. In a weird twist, I don't even have that to talk about today. Let's see. Next we have a game on Steam called Skullgrounds, which is a casual horror gore game. We can see we've got some dark screenshot syndrome and a bad looking interface. It's already mixed. Now, here's the thing about a game called School Grounds is, it's a game set in a school setting, so it might be child exploitation according to Steam and their interpretation of a Washington law that may or may not actually exist. But don't worry, I don't see any anime characters, so this one gets allowed. It's free. But being serious for a second, yeah, this looks like garbage. So I've already played pretty much enough cards, so I'm just kind of letting it in. See, that puts me at the humble monthly bundle immediately. Let's see if there's actually any new bundles. The Yogscast Jingle Jam is still going on, but that's basically it. And the vast number of the games that are on the Jingle Jam are not good quality games, or don't look like good quality games. So, like, well past the halfway point, no decision could make. Now, what's interesting, and this is a new development on Steam's part. The weekly sale this week, which I imagine the reason why this was done and this happened, is because they've made a slight change to their front page recommendations, and because nothing really is on sale this week, because next week everything will be on sale for the Steam winter sale, unless of course Steam actually doesn't have a winter sale, which would be shocking, certainly. So one of the games, and we can just start from that point, actually, let's just show it. Ooh. Well, I guess it is because the games are centered around what you've wishlisted or not, because the game is not being listed here with me logged out. Interesting. So, let's come over here. We're on the Steam front page, and these are for the most part the games that are recommended to me. Although maybe a couple of these games are not on my front page when I looked at it earlier. And then these are the special offers. And what I got when I was logged in, and this is the first time I've ever seen something like this, is, well, I already own this game, so that would explain why that wasn't on the special offers. And probably should buy this. I need to figure out if I can. Just the daily deals on missed games. Yeah, I need a couple missed games. I need missed 3 and missed 4. But that's not what I was talking about. What I got recommended on the special offers. Let me play over here so I don't irritate this guy too much. Was this game, Yeti Deep Realms. And this is 14 positive reviews, which is first what caught my eye. But there's a little bit more story to this. Like, if we're just to evaluate this quickly, it looks like it's a pretty badly animated platformer. Maybe it's got some platforming chops to it, so it might play a little bit better than an average bad game, but nothing super special. It's 90% off for 49 cents, which is also a little shocking that would be on the front page for one of these really, really cheap games. But the most interesting part about it is this developer is kind of a troll developer. Like, he came out with this game that's rated nudity and sexual content called Metroid I Swear It's a Nice Game 2. Before that, he made a game that was rated nudity called Teleportals. I swear it's a nice game. So this one isn't tagged with nudity or anything, so this one came out in 2017, probably didn't make any money for him, and then he just decided to sell out and put a bunch of, you know, terribly animated, what, there's a girl in the schoolgirl outfit, it's gonna get banned again. But yeah, these are terrible games, these are troll games, these are not things that should be on the front page. The main defense I have made to Steam is that at the very least, these troll games, these low effort games on Steam's case just weren't actually affecting anyone, because nobody was getting recommended these games, nobody was seeing it. Apparently that's not the case anymore, so something has changed in their recommendation algorithm. So I'm gonna spectate this guy if we can, although this is gonna require me to watch an entire game, which is gonna be weird, certainly.
I've been working my tits. I can do this.
But this might work if he's gonna play a really simplistic game against somebody. Well, 30 health isn't the lowest level enemies. Some of these shrines interact with other shrines in ways. Whenever you discard a card, summon a random demon. There's one where you can win on the first turn just by hurting yourself against a certain opponent. So while this is happening, I'm gonna go through my Twitter feed and see if there's any more news. 9 minutes ago, end of 2018 Steam Wishlist Cleanup, episode 17, games starting with the letter P, aired on my channel.
Is running wild.
It's a little surprising what YouTube picked for some of these episodes, because as I'm doing the end of the year Steam Wishlist Cleanup, I'm talking about games. Some of them are adult games. For the most part, none of them had anything incredibly inappropriate in their thumbnails, which should be the way it should always be on Steam. Like, the storefront itself should be, for the most part, family friendly, even if the game isn't. But at least 2 or 3 times I've talked about a adult game, a sex game, and YouTube has picked that section where it takes the image from the thumbnails from the sex game to make my video thumbnail. Probably because those are the images that have the most number of faces of characters. Most video game screenshots and thumbnails don't show the face of a character, and it almost certainly is the point where the faces are the most emotive, more smiling, looking attractive of sorts. This is what has been said as far as the recommendation engine for thumbnails, the automatic thumbnail picks, as far as how it works, and it's kind of silly. There you go, watch and learn. I forgot what I was talking about, but yeah, it's kind of silly that YouTube's trying to be advertiser friendly, yet their automatic thumbnail generator picks the most unfriendly thumbnails of the batch in this instance. Alright, let's go over here. And I imagine all of those are getting dusted. So we're building up dust. See, that gets everything done here. Let's move over to the Asian account. I don't know if I'm really gonna do anything with the Asian account. Talking of Jake Burkett, he's now on Twitter 23 minutes ago complaining about
I can tell you'll have some news stories tonight.
he's complaining about like an Amazon shipment. At this point, he's complaining more. I'm sorry, he's going through like a Happy Winter Veil. Ooh, why is Winter Veil happening so early? Play 100 cards, play Shaman cards, play Mage cards. Let's do this. But let's do this right. We're gonna make some Mage cards and convert to Wild so I don't accidentally screw up that. It's nice that you can, even on my newer accounts, I can make a deck of 30 cards that are cheap to play. There we go. So I kind of wonder if I'm gonna go back around and find out that I have this Winter Veil quest for the other accounts too. Yeah, as far as Jake Burkett though, it's time to mute him. Like, he's going through some kind of mental depression, seasonal affective disorders, and he's just a game developer I don't need to follow for all his complaints. It would be better for my personal mental health to not see other people's mental breakdowns.
Jaina versus Jaina.
You asked for it. Oh, it is on.
See, all I need to do is play a bunch of cheap cards. Let's trade all those. Tech Raptor has an article, Roll the Dice in Queens Coast Casino, now available on Nutaku. Interesting looking game because it is a curvy ebony woman of African descent, which is not the typical Nutaku fare. They've been mostly sticking to the blonde bimbo stereotype a little bit more for the most part. So, but they also have been spreading out. I'm getting a lot of ads on Twitter too for no good reason. My ad blocker is failing to block them. My multiple ad blockers are failing to block them. Let's see, I wonder if I could block something. View block origin. Zapper. Come on, how's that gonna work? View block Zapper.
Time runs out on me.
Doesn't want to work. Interesting.
Welcome to the show.
Well, I'm not gonna mess with that anymore. I'll just ignore the ads. Gearbox Official has a quick look at some of the original concept artwork for Homeworld game.
Can I light your fire?
Which I think is an old game that they published, or a slightly older game, not a brand new game. I did hear that Penn Jillette, the magician, who is a friend of Randy Pitchford, at one point accidentally, or perhaps intentionally, crashed his car into his car. I don't know if that's really video game news so much as just a car accident. Yeah, there's nothing. I am already at the point where I'm seeing repeated content on my Twitter feed. There's literally no news. And that might explain why Gamma Sutra is just pushing the Riot Games article from last week, because there's like nothing else to even talk about.
Job done.
Look how it burns!
GameIndustry.biz has an article, Sony accidentally revealed PS4 player counts. Grand Theft Auto 5 has the highest number pulled at 51.7 million. Now, I've heard some debate about the accuracy of some of these numbers, but they seem to be somewhat accurate. Sony's new feature, My PS4 Life, isn't just good for standing in awe of how many hours you've put into No Man's Sky, though the ingenuity of some users, it's also become a way to determine how many total users certain titles have garnered since release. A website called GameStop has appeared with a method of exploiting total users of a given game from information provided by the users, whereas trophies acquired. Essentially, My PS4 Life shows a user the total number of users who've acquired the rarest trophies they possess. That combined let's see. That combined with the percentage of players who can be used to determine a good estimate toward total users for a game. For example, say 1,142,392 players earned the Cradle Trophy in No Man's Sky, and on PlayStation.com they also revealed that 28.9% of all players got this trophy. Simple math, the total number of people who've played No Man's Sky on PS4 equals 1,142,392 times. Sounds like, I think that number is the number of seconds in a year. Times 100% divided over 28.9% to equal 3,952,913. The information can be acquired for any PlayStation 4 game provided you can see someone's rarest trophy, though trophies that are too rare, 0.1% of players, for example, don't give a good estimate. And the other caveat is that the number of players who earned the trophy was likely last updated between the end of November and the beginning of December, so the trick doesn't work for newer games. GameStat has published a number of extrapolated player numbers on his website, including the following numbers of note. So Call of Duty World War II got I'm going to estimate these numbers. They got about 24 million players. Call of Duty Black Ops got about 9 million. I'm just going to do some simple rounding down. So I'm not even rounding up. Yeah, I'm just going to round it down at the 100,000 mark for simplicity's sake. Fallout 76 has 407,000 players. Can't round that one down, otherwise I would say Fallout 76 has no players. FIFA 18 had 32 million players about. FIFA 19 has about 12 million players. Fortnite has about 16 million players for Europe and Australia only. I don't understand the exception there. Grand Theft Auto has about 51 players. Minecraft has about 25 players. No Man's Sky has about 3 million players, although I'd really round that one up to 4 million because it's 3,950,000. Overwatch has about 10 million. Red Dead Redemption has about 6 million, and Rocket League has about 22 million. Now it's important to remember that these aren't all unique, different players. These are almost certainly major amounts of overlap. But interesting numbers, certainly. The biggest number you see would be, I guess, Call of Duty World War II, no FIFA, no Grand Theft Auto. Yeah, Grand Theft Auto by far is 51 million, so that tells me that there's 51 million PS4s that have been sold, almost certainly. Which, that's probably not a surprising number. Now, I'm looking at this TechRaptor article because I have nothing else to really look at. The Roll the Dice and Queen's Coast Casino now available on Nutaku. And I have in the past been critical of solitaire games that just have like scantily clad women on them. And that's what this looks like, frankly. I guess I could just click on the site and see if there's any more not safe for work images I can, because TechRaptor is only going to have a limited amount.
You can see and a new acquisition.
Let's see. I don't know how much of this really is.
You require my
Yeah, it really just seems like it's background images with a slight card game happening in the front. It does seem like they're going for a very diverse cast, though. You've got some Asian characters, some African characters, maybe an Irish character, or just a fiery redhead, blondes, black hairs. Seems like bust size, though, is still very much all in the giant F and G cup size. So not a lot of variety there. Hip ratio seems to all be very unrealistically big or narrow hips but wide buttocks. $13.99 for the game is almost certainly not worth that. Well, and definitely not something I would normally talk about if there was anything else to talk about.
My hand is too full.
But since there is nothing else to talk about, we might as well just embrace our inner perverts and go with this other article that TechRaptor just put out. Get down and dirty in Nutaku's newest free-to-play title, Booty Farm. Now, Booty Farm, from this thumbnail, has more animated characters, where the casino game we were just talking about actually was more CGI, realistic graphics. I forgot to mention that. Let's see if we can clear something for him.
My hand is too full.
So yeah, this is animated, and we're seeing way too long legs, thick buttocks with a impossibly thin, narrow hip. The bust sizes are not getting insanely large though this time. And this looks like a click and wait style game with just the adult content being added as an afterthought. So I need to play 3 more cards. But let's keep it interesting. Well, do I even really need to go any further here? Alright. Yeah. We're on the agent account. I need to do some stuff off screen. I started this stream by saying I wasn't feeling too good and I haven't particularly gotten any more better. A lot of people came on the chat and thank you for that. We've been going for about 2 hours, but there just really is no news to talk about, and it's gonna be really silly for me to just make a shaman deck real quick, play that, and then have to go back and play a mage game again. Probably have to play another shaman game. It's possible that this Wintervale daily quest won't be done by the time I hit Wednesday if I don't play it a lot, and if I do, I'll save all these cards. So yeah, there's really no reason to stretch this out anymore. Like we've done everything, we've talked about everything. It's the end of the year, nothing is happening. Thanks to everybody who came on the chat. If you want more content on my channel, there's that playlist tab, and there's a lot of old games I'm sure people haven't seen. And there is the Steam wishlist cleanup if you're interested in that. There is also Borderlands 2 airing. But I'm calling it a day here. That's going to be it for this recording. As always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and watch every second of my videos to help my channel grow. When you subscribe, please click the notification bell. If you want a friend or follow me on things like Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Google+, Steam, or Battle.net, there's a whole bunch of links down below in the description for those too. Also, you can support me through Patreon, or you can friend me through Steam and gift me a game off my wishlist, or gift me a gift card. The Steam Winter Sale is coming about. It would be a wonderful Christmas present if people gifted me a lot of games while they were cheap, and help me maintain a large library of games to sort through and pick when I decide to play a new game. Thank you for watching. Have a good evening.